Hey all, it's time for a classic review here at scorchyourtoys@anymoon.com. Today I'm looking at Yamato's Grenade Box Protection Armor released for their line of 1/48 scale VF-1 toys. There were 3 color schemes released, all at an MSRP of 12,000 yen, and we're looking at all of them. All releases come in a box that is the same monstrous size as the Yamato 1/48 scale VF-1s, and each includes a flip-top lid, except for the later reissue of the anime color version. Now, I never picked up that reissue, and I'm just assuming it's the same as the first release. If I ever find out otherwise, I will do a follow-up video. Pulling out the trays from that massive box reveals the armor and its major components. There are also 2 sets of fixed post hands, an optional shorter cod piece, and behind those items, 2 baggies filled with large or medium-sized missiles. There are also side and neck cavity fillers, and flipping the cardboard tray over reveals a baggie containing the instructions and a massive sticker sheet. If you purchase the Urban Camo version, there's a second sticker sheet and an additional marking guide. Yamato went all out on this accessory, so there are a lot of parts, and we are going to go through them now, install them on the toy, and talk about what makes them cool. And we're going to begin with the side cavity fillers. The side cavity filler looks like this. There's this little integrated side cavity filler on a Yamato 1/48 scale toy. We're going to go ahead and close that now, and then this has a little notch right here that is received by that chest part. So we want to just fish this in and get it on there. And then the other thing we want to do is make sure this leading edge is going to be behind the chest, because really that's what's going to lock everything firmly into place. Once you have that into position, you're going to come around to the back of the toy and press the hips into position. Let's see if we can get this to work. There it goes. Close that back up. Look along the side. Now remember, that chest should be in front. There shouldn't be a gap here. There shouldn't be any squirreliness. It should be locked in there pretty tight. Not a weakness of this accessory, but definitely a weakness of the 1/48 scale toy is the backpack hinge. In the old days, we called it the BP8 because that is what Yamato labeled it on the parts list. So this hinge right here that is holding up my backpack has broken many times on me. It is right here, these little rings that go around a metal rod. You can see a pretty clear break right there that I have glued together many times. So be careful with the backpack as you handle the armor. Now we're going to take a look at it from the top. There is a little gimmick here. This thing here flips over and grabs the backpack. Be very sure before you do that this part here is recessed out of that trap door. That will prevent there being pressure there, which could potentially snap your BP8. So now we're going to lock that into place, and now that backpack's not going to go anywhere. And we're going to grab our neck cavity filler, which looks like this. It loops over the top of the trap door with these parts here and grabs them, and then you just press down. And once you have that into place, you bring the neck into position and press down there, and it will lock everything together like so. Before we go any further, we got to decide which configuration we want. Do we want the shorter crotch or the longer one? The longer one is for you perfect transformation nuts. It's what I'm going to be showing. But if you want to use the shorter version, we just go ahead and remove the nose cone now. Otherwise, every step of this installation is the same. The waist armor comes pre-assembled, and we are going to begin by disassembling it so we can install it on the toy. But I did want to show you that there is some articulation in what the hips can do here, so this isn't going to completely restrict the toy once it's on, although using the Garwalk joint is going to be better for you. I also wanted to show you these hip grenades. So you have the ability to remove the back of the grenade, slide it out of its position, put it back together again, and then put it in the hand of the toy as if it's lobbing one of the grenades on its hip, which is a pretty cool feature to have. Unfortunately, it slides off a little too easy, so this has been a durability concern. These can pop off on you. It would have been nicer if they just had a really tight peg that they fit onto, and it took some effort to pop them off. But still, really cool that Yamato was trying to give us every single grenade as an independent component. To disassemble the waist armor, we're just going to remove that hip holster. We're going to remove the back of the hip armors like so. We're just going to put these aside for now and get to this core centerpiece, which we can just pull back on to free up. Now, if it's struggling a little bit or a little tight on you, these prongs, you can see how it grips those. So you could just apply a little outward pressure. There is a slot in the back of the armor, and that slot is going to line right up with this tab coming out of the back of the VF-1. So we just apply a little pressure like so, and then we come in from the front, line up with that slot, and apply a little pressure backward, and there you go. Now you've got that pelvic armor on. Next, we want to install the intake cover. So bring your leg forward, slide this piece on like so, and then grab your back of the hip armor piece. You can see they put nice little details even within the armor. We can just fish that through. The bottom has a little round section that finds the hole in the side of that pelvic armor. So let's just go ahead and put that back on again, like so. And then we're gonna grab the front of the armor. We're gonna fish it into that hole as well, which will then help it line up into those pegs front and back. Give it a nice press inward. Then grab your hip holster. Now your hip holster looks like it might be symmetrical, but it's not quite. You wanna have this rounded, longer piece towards the bottom. Press that in to finish the look, and you're gonna repeat on the other side. All right, before the next step, let's make sure everything is on there solid. Flip your toy over, make sure these pieces are flush front and back, and if they are, you know you're in good shape. And then we're gonna grab our nose cone cover piece. It's got a big tab in the back, a smaller tab in the front. You can see that slot underneath right there that is going to receive that back tab. So we just wanna line it all up, press in, and then we're gonna just push down a little bit to get that over the hump, and it should be on there nice and solid. Now grab your leg armor. It's got a nice little accent here, some nice accents below, some painted details on it. Looks pretty solid. And check out these missile bays. We have front and rear loading missile bays, matte gray paint inside, waiting for us to install the missiles. We're gonna do that later. And the hinges here are very nice. They have sliding pegs that make everything as concealed as they could be, which is great. And then on the back, we have top and bottom missile racks. Again, same types of hinges, very low visual impact, very high points there for the functionality of this leg armor. Installing the armor is pretty intuitive. We're just first going to disassemble it. And I'm just putting a little pressure on the parts to pull them apart. There is a groove within the outside armor, and that groove needs to go on this little fin on the leg. Now, obviously, future manufacturers invented the fold-over fin there. Yamato did that for their V2, and Bandai copied it on their DX, and it makes a lot of sense. But here, we're just gonna peg the front on. We're gonna spin the toy around, grab our back piece here, and line that up and press inward. And then it should be fairly easy now to grab our interior leg armor, line up the peg in the front, and just press in when we see it is in the right spot. It is a little bit outside right there. Come on, there we go. And then just press in firmly, should look like this. Grab your other leg armor and do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're gonna install this backpack booster, which has a nice articulated thruster, some nice silver accents there, metal pegs that are received by the backpack right here, and there's a little plastic clip that's gonna come out and reach into this wing groove right here. So let's go ahead and line everything up. And then we're just gonna start applying pressure gently inward. And you can see I've already accomplished this on the other side. You can see where we're going with all these parts. It is a little stiff, and as you get it in, you want to make sure you're getting enough pressure inward to make sure that that is going to grip into the wing like it's supposed to. And you can see I'm almost there right now. And this is an area where you do want to be cautious with. Always make sure you're supporting that backpack. The hinge at the bottom, especially as these get older and are more brittle, can break and your backpack will fall off at that point, which is obviously not a place where you want to be. But there we go. So we've applied enough pressure, got that clip on the inside, and you can see from the back, everything nice and flush now. Next up, we're going to do the shoulder armor. The shoulder armor has a hinge that extends at the top and then reveals that missile compartment internally like so. And again, we'll put those missiles in a little bit. There are teeth around it that are going to help it pinch closed. We have this sleeve underneath. Now, this is a little bit debatable. A lot of people feel like the armor should just go right on top of that shoulder and that should work. But in a lot of the line art, the shoulders look all of a sudden tremendously huge, and that's why we get a part like this. And I love that Yamato included a panel here to keep that gap between the shoulder as hidden as possible. So we can go ahead, put that on, line it up on the shoulder, and then just press it down like so. And now we have the gauntlet, which can separate by just pulling it apart. It's very stiff. There are these missiles on the front of the gauntlet that are removable. They tend to fit in better than the hip holster grenades, but they could still be something that gets a little loose on you, so keep an eye on those. And then just line up the armor within that forearm. There's a spot where it'll fit naturally, and then just press in like so, and you're good to go. And then finally, it's time to install the chest armor. The chest armor has these opening bays. And as you open this and pull it forward, those missiles also come forward internally. And you can see again, some pretty good detail within there. And as we close that nice and tight, lock shut, we just come up above and get the hinges into these slots. And once that's done, we can just press down and we're gonna hear some weird creaking sounds as everything fits together. And this gray part underneath slips inside that waist armor, and you know everything is then good to go. For the purpose of this review, I've been putting the woodland color armored parts onto a woodland colored VF-1, which means it's a VF-1 that comes with green hands. Can you name all the other VF-1s that come with green hands? Yeah, there aren't any. But this GBP comes with fixed posed hands that are also green, which means that this particular armor, the urban camo and the anime colors, both come with white hands, seems really limited in its appeal, or you're putting green fists onto a VF-1 that would normally have white fists, but your last step is putting these fists on. Now, the other thing about these fists is they don't seem to fit very well. You can see the peg, not exactly the same size as the hand we are removing. And so as you push this in, it really seems to fight you. It doesn't fit in very naturally, which makes them extend a little further from the body. I don't know if that was the goal, to help get them in front of that armor, but it's just kind of an unnatural fit and makes the hands a little more prone to being knocked off. But here you are with the finished look with the armor on and those bulkier fixed posed hands. All versions include the same fixed posed hands, which means you also get this hand that holds the gun. So we'll go ahead and put that in. Now, historically, this big gauntlet has interfered with the gun on some heavy armor toys, but Yamato was able to just barely make it work, but it is a very tight squeeze. So we can push this on there now, and you can see in a lot of poses, that's a really awkward angle for the gun to be at. So you're gonna do things like this and just kind of make it work, but not really the best looking handling of the gun. But considering how big and round that this armor is, The fact that it could hold it at all was considered a win. Missile installation is a breeze. You got two different sizes, a bigger one and a smaller one. The smaller ones go into these shoulder compartments. Missiles generally fit pretty snug, although I do have a few cavities that I think are a little bit larger. But as you can see, it's staying in for the most part, and you just give it a little pressure downward. And it's cool that we have the ability for dioramas, or if you can make missile firing effects, even cooler. The lower leg cavities get these larger missiles. They just peg right into position. Same thing with the back of the leg. It's that larger missile again, and you just press in. I mentioned earlier that cool sliding effect as you open the chest and the missiles pop forward. But this does raise a durability issue that I wanted to point out now as we install the missiles. First, if you're gonna remove this back panel, which I recommend you do, you remove the 4 screws, and then there's a little lip in the front where this abdomen armor comes in. And so you just need to pull back and get it up and over that little lip right there. Once it is removed, you can see we have this plastic T right here. And that is what pushes up as we open the door here. That is what pushes on those missile compartments and get them into that extended position. But if you were now installing missiles, and this were, imagine it on the toy right now, and you were pushing down to get this missile into place, and it is a very snug fit, you might push so hard that you would cause a stress crack on this little T, or even break that T entirely. So I do recommend removing the back and putting your fingers against that whole compartment the missile goes into as you push those missiles into place. On the left, I've got the urban camo with the larger crotch armor. On the right, we have the anime version, and I've removed the nose cone so I could put the shorter crotch on. And you can see what a big visual improvement that makes, having the smaller crotch armor on there. Now, I mentioned earlier there were 2 sizes of missiles on this toy. And I'm not sure, let me know if you know, from the specs, I think there only is supposed to be 1 size missile. And I think Yamato would have done a lot better to only go for the smaller size missile. Because as you can see in this line art comparison, the chest is just huge. And all of the proportions are a little bulkier. It makes a very imposing piece on your display shelf, but maybe not the most line art accurate. So how does it handle when it's all put together? Well, it's not perfect. These side of the leg armors have a tendency to pop off. There feels like there's just a tiny bit of pressure working against them all the time. If we go to spread the legs apart, which you can do, you can get kind of a natural spread going. But if you get too aggressive with it, the hip extensions are going to happen on the 148 toy, and then these armors are going to get loose and start falling off on you. So that can be problematic. I already talked about these back of the missiles, how they can pop off. Then we have issues like that. The ankles on these toys have ratchets. And so when the weight gets too far one way or the other, it clicks to the next ratchet, which could cause everything to fall apart. Now, that's not to say you can't articulate the toy, right? We have that gear walk joint internally here, and so we can bring the leg forward with the gear walk joint. There we go. So we can bring that forward. And so in doing that, the crotch armor has fallen off, and my leg is getting a little sloppy because it's come out at that hip joint. So just a little pressure in, and actually everything is just falling apart at this point. So what does this tell us about handling the GPP? Well, if your Yamato 148 toy was brand new, that hip would be less likely to slide out, less likely to cause all of those things to fall apart. But I think what you can appreciate from this very small demonstration is that you're going to put the toy in a pose, and you're going to put it down, and it's going to look good and aggressive and impressive in that pose, but it's not as playable once this armor is on. The Woodland color parts were a real swing and a miss for Yamato, and I think they would have done much better to release a mass production type grenade box production armor. Maybe one with a slightly different brown than the mass production VF-1A toy, and white accents, red accents, white missiles. The green missiles here make no sense. I'll get into that in a second. And then take that armor, put 100 of them aside, and do the green striping from the Woodland color toy, which is a beautiful toy and a shame to cover up an armor. But do that striping, make it some camouflage, have it really pop, and sell that as an exclusive in limited fashion. I think that would have been the strategy I would have done. I think it would have been really helpful. So these green missiles here are all internally stowed, so it doesn't make any sense that anyone would paint them green. Plus they have a big high visibility red top to them. So I think Yamato, again, should have just left them white missiles, made them more visually interesting when you have the bays open, and then it would have been a better display piece. When the Urban Camo was released, people were like, "Oh my God, it's got green on it." Well, I've got green in the frame here on the Woodland color. Here is that color on the Urban Camo. You could see it's more brown, gray, green, like barely, very desaturated. It is not jarring to the eye. And the Urban Camo has this intricate paint scheme where you have striping throughout, nice silver accents on it. And then as we come down, we have gray, we have the back stripes. Again, just a really cool color scheme. Even this blue here, like light blue-gray, everything is beautiful. These yellow accents. All of this was inspired by a custom from a show in Japan. You could see that custom has these really cool Prometheus markings. Yamato wasn't really sure, Prometheus, ARMD, which one should we do? So they did both on the sticker sheet. Now it's a shame none of them are on the actual toy. These parts up here, a lot of people are like, "Oh, mine is getting yellow because this part isn't white anymore." This was never white. It was always sort of a light gray. So if yours looks discolored, and it is old at this point, maybe it is a little discolored, but it might also just be that that was not a white part and you're kind of assuming in your memory it was. This is the same down below. Not really white, sort of a light gray. As far as build quality is concerned, only my Urban Camo really had any issues. This yellow part is painted, and the hinge on it, I don't know if it was impacted by the paint, but getting this chest open and closed takes way too much effort. So I can get it to function, but that's my only real build quality issue that I can complain about. Overall, yes, I think it's a very impressive display piece. The proportions totally wrong from the line art. They went even beefier and bigger than they really needed to. And no, it doesn't really stay on very well. It does make the toy difficult to handle. It reduces the toy to a really cool display piece, but it is a cool display piece. And I think it's so cool that Yamato used all of that size to cram in these things we've never had before. Independent missiles, every single bay opening up, all of that interior detail, the moving nozzles on the back of the toy. They really crammed every feature they possibly could and made it smart how it all comes together. So props to Yamato for really trailblazing when it came to this product, even if the end result was a little bit more difficult to handle than they probably intended. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you like content like this, obviously you should subscribe. Thanks everybody for watching.